Let's try in a second. Okay, cool. Welcome everybody to episode 3 of Happiness in Humans Live. I'm gonna say apologies right now because I do have a dog with me today who needs a lot of attention. So I'm gonna be trying to keep him quiet as we go through. So, again, sorry. I might have to mute myself a couple times as well. But this week, our focus is on mental health for yourselves, for your people, and for HR professionals as well. And sorry, Jack, it's okay. Come here. All right. We have a few faces today and some old ones as well. So if it's your first time, welcome. I think we're just going to go around quickly and say a quick introduction of yourself, who you are and where you work, and then we'll get into the questions. So I'm going to start off with Annabelle.
Sorry about the camera angle. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Annabelle and I work at Flagstone Investment Management. I'm EA to the CEO and I also kind of look after wellbeing and mental health across the company. That's all.
Sorry guys, moving so I could possibly throw the ball out the door. Thank you, Annabelle. And there's Amy. Amy Pooney. She might not be able to hear me. Okay, I'll skip past on. Anne Wilson. Okay. We'll skip past that one as well. How about Carol Smith?
Hi there, it's Carol here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Nice to see a face of sea of nodding faces. Carol, the HR director for Smartbox Group UK Limited, which is an online gift experience company. The brands are buygift.com and Red Letter Days. More nod.
Thank you, Carol. Nice to meet you. Caroline.
Hey, I'm Caroline. I work at the Happiness Index in the growth team.
Thanks, Caroline. Claire.
Hi everyone, I'm Claire. I work for Career Path Network, which is a group of brands in the graduate careers sector. I'm Chief People Officer there, so do everything people related.
Thanks, Claire. And Gemma, nice to see you.
Hello, I'm Gemma. I have the pleasure of working with Rosie and the rest of the gang at the Happiness Index. I look after all of our lovely people there, so I'm involved in the HR there.
Thank you, Gemma. Next we have Jade.
Hi everyone, I'm Jade. I work with Kevin at Williams Kent and we specialise in HR recruitment, but a lot of what we do is provide events for our clients and candidates as well around mental health and wellbeing and things like that. So nice to meet you all.
Thanks. And Jenny?
Hi everyone, lovely to see your smiling faces. I'm Jen Workman. I work for Arup, who built Sydney Opera House, amongst other things, the cheese grater and stuff like that. We build, design and do lots of really cool buildings and bridges and stuff like that. I'm in the global people team and I manage the program of stuff.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. Joe.
Hi everyone, I work for the Happiness Index too. We call ourselves the Quackers, so I'm another Quacker and I'm in the growth team as well.
Julian, welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Julian. I'm not a people professional just yet. I am an experienced marketeer who was on furlough and went through redundancy during this year. One of the things I did while I was on furlough was started doing a company radio show that went global. So I got into the world of employee engagement and people. And it was such an amazing experience that my my focus now is to start a consultancy that helps businesses create content and to fill some of the gap that the way in which we're working might be in your workforce. So I'm here to listen and to learn about the things that are really worrying and pressing, and trying to work out how I can help, but in a non-pushy, non-salesy way. I am not here to sell. I'm here to learn and to share. So, hi everyone.
Hi, thanks, Julian. Nice to meet you. Kevin.
Hi everyone. Basically, what Jade said. I'm from Williams Kent. We're a HR recruitment firm, and these sessions are great for us because it helps us make sure that our content is relevant and we're useful and interesting to our clients.
Awesome, thanks, Kevin. Maria, I know you're eating your lunch.
I'm okay. I've stopped.
Okay.
I've put pause on lunch, but I will be going back to it shortly. Hello, everyone. Nice to see some familiar faces and some newbies. I'm Maria Riley. I run Acorns and Oaks, which is an independent HR consultancy, and I work with SMEs on all things people. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Maria. Next we have Narissa Caesar.
Hi, sorry, I was just unmuting myself. Had some background. I'm not camera ready, so I apologise. I'm not putting my camera on this week. 2 weeks' time, I promise I'll be ready. I work at Westminster City Council as the wellbeing and reward specialist. So my bag is pretty much just that. It's around employee wellbeing, staff benefits, tiny little bit of reporting and policy work. But I'm here to learn today. We're doing a lot of work. I joined the council last year, May, and we've just done a lot of work on wellbeing, and it's shown in our staff survey results. We're currently waiting on this year's results, and just here to learn about best practice, what other people are doing, what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, and see whether we can improve or tweak our offer.
Great, thank you, Narissa. Next up is Roma.
Hi, so I work at the Happiness Index as well. I'm in the customer team, so I'm one of the customer success managers. And I'm just here to learn a little bit more and apply some of that knowledge to our clients as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Thanks, Roma. Sean.
Hi there, I'm Sian. I'm Head of People and OD at the British Trust for Ornithology. So they're a science research organisation covering the whole of the UK. Yeah, and I do all of the things that you guys have spoken about, anything to do with HR. It's a small HR team, so anything and everything. And wellbeing is obviously a significant issue for us at the moment.
Great, thank you, Sian. Silke.
Hi, I'm Silke Britton from Clear Voice, and we specialise in culture change and employee engagement, and do a lot of work with organisational network analysis to actually identify influences and help organisations get and their people be the best they can be.
Thanks, Silke. And Tabitha.
Hi, I'm Tabitha. I'm the studio director for a design company in London. We make bespoke sculptural lighting at quite large scales. We've been working remotely since March, and there's only a few people back, and I'm just really interested in how to gauge how people are feeling in themselves, sort of going into the next lot of lockdown. And it's lovely to be here.
Thanks, Tabitha. And thank you, everybody, for the introductions. I know it takes up a bit of time, but I think it's really important with this webinar, especially because it is so community focused. And it's always good to see new faces and old ones as well in this. But today we have two guest stars on, Kelly Swingler from Crystal's Crew, and then Sophie Clark from Digital Theatre. So Sophie, would you like to do an introduction of yourself quickly?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Sophie, and I work at Digital Theatre as head of people. It's just me. doing everything and anything to do with people. So there's a few similar kind of positions out there. And digital theatre, just so you know, is about 70 employees, very small, and we do online education resources for theatre and English literature. We have like a production company that goes out and films theatre and puts it online. It's me.
Thank you, Sophie. And Kelly, you go ahead.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, my name's Kelly Swingler, despite what my screen name says. I had to jump onto another email address, so it is definitely Swingler. And I'm a founder and CEO of the Chrysalis Crew. So we will be 7 in January, and primarily our focus at the Crew is to be changing the world of work. So we work with organisations of all sizes, but primarily it is about partnering with HR professionals to help them to do things differently. One of my favourite parts of that is helping HR teams to burn the handbook and focus much more on people. And then I'm also executive coach specifically for senior HR professionals at kellyswingler.com. So yeah, a background for me, I know I only look 21, so do not let it fool you. But I have been working HR, kind of HR, OD, and a little bit of L&D now for about 22 years. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Kelly. I love that phrase. I saw Jenny down in the corner there too, cheering for that. Love the hand. Great. Well, thank you both for those intros. So my first question will be to Kelly and Sophie as well, if you'd like to chip in, and anybody else, if you have questions as we go through this, please feel free to ask. So you work with a lot of HR professionals around the coaching and well-being, mental health space. And so I was just wondering, what are some of the biggest factors that you've seen from this year compared to last year around what people are most challenged with in mental health?
I think from an HR perspective, I think probably primarily for HR, we're the fixers, aren't we? We're the doers, we help everybody else. So while sometimes we will, stress and busyness is usually the common phrases that you'll get from HR professionals. But I think throughout the last 6 months, I've definitely been hearing a lot more about burnout and actually people using that word much more. Anxiety levels, I think, have been going through the roof. We're still hearing about stress and busyness, but I think that has escalated, kind of tenfold really. And also really starting to hear a lot about kind of loss of confidence, but I think that is coming from increase in anxiety and an increase in stress. Sleep really, I think for a lot of HR professionals is, something that's nice to do at the moment, kind of when you get the time to do it. And really, as a result of that, as our sleep starts to decline, then ultimately, our confidence, our self-esteem, our self-belief, and all those sorts of things start to dip a lot as well. So I think they would be the kind of more telltales for this year than I have seen much more than last year and probably 22 years before that.
Definitely, I think that's something not even only in the HR role, but just for anybody really feeling those increased levels of anxiety and stress.
Yeah, and I think obviously, I think probably throughout the first 6 months of lockdown, I think we were all kind of hoping that would happen. So I think we're also kind of starting to see a lot of change fatigue. And again, as we go into the next 6 months, and again, the recent blog that I did for you guys that I know you've put out this week. But as we start to now go into darker days, darker mornings, shorter hours of sunlight, all of those sorts of things, I think the change fatigue, our general exhaustion levels, seasonal affective disorder, all of those things that we would ordinarily start to see at this time of year, I think is going to be massively exacerbated because we're not going to have necessarily the same kind of social atmosphere that we would normally have as we kind of go from kind of September into the winter.
Sorry, just to add to that as well, and I think also from an HR professional perspective, just the amount of stress that is coming from the top down now to us to deliver on new initiatives, new ideas. It all seems like I think even in the last 2 years, a massive change in even like budget towards mental health and focus from SLT is completely increased. And now we're hitting the second lockdown. It's almost as if, everything has to be done and dusted and planned out for the next kind of 6 months as well. But yeah, agree with all of that. Exhaustion.
I've said this before too in our previous episode, but it's just, I think a lot of people are struggling with the fact that most of us thought it would be over by now, and now we're the latest announcement of looking forward to the next 6 months. It's continuing on. So definitely that's having a bigger effect, and that's coming through in our employee voice data as well. We're seeing people are seeing that like just trends all over again with the uncertainty and anxiety and just feeling a bit down. And so from those factors that you've just shared with us and those challenges, Kelly, what are some ways that we could help overcome those challenges or try to in the next few months?
I think first and foremost, I think he's absolutely recognising that we are still in the midst of a global pandemic, and I think we have to acknowledge that. I think for all of us, you know, we have been working from home. We've brought work into our home lives, you know, 100% for a lot of people. I know we still had, you know, some people that have been out at work, but I think firstly we have to acknowledge that we are still in a global pandemic. And I think we need to be having that conversation, you know, with all of our people. I think we've got to be, you know, we've got to be allowing ourselves more flex. We've got to be much more kinder to ourselves. You know, if the only kind of hours of daylight, you know, if they're the times that we can kind of get out and have a walk, or I don't know, sit in the garden, anything to kind of go and get some fresh air. I think that's what we need to be doing. And so I think from an HR perspective and from a leadership perspective, we have to appreciate that we need much more flex over the next few months. So taking those breaks, stopping. I mean, we spoke, didn't we, in terms of numbers? We didn't know how many people you'd have on today. I think the Zoom fatigue, the kind of video fatigue that lots and lots of people are experiencing. You know, I know a lot of my HR clients have been on back-to-back calls, literally from kind of 8 in the morning until 6 o'clock in the evening, without, you know, no time for a break, no time to grab a coffee, no time for kind of comfort breaks or those sorts of things. We've got to be looking at people's diaries, checking people's diaries, ideally minimizing the amount of meetings that we're having, remembering that things like phones still exist and we can just pick up a phone and have a 2-minute conversation instead of having to book an hour-long video call with somebody. But I think much more flex, much more compassion, and I think communication has to increase much more. I forget who said it a moment ago. But I think, you know, with the next 6 months that we've got, I think somebody, who was it, maybe Tabitha possibly, about kind of sense checking across organisations and seeing what's happening. A really kind of simple tool that you can start to use in conversations with people, it really, really is a simple tool, just kind of looking at the change curve. And using that as a conversation starter for people. Actually, where are you on the curve? Calling it out and having those sorts of discussions with your friends, because again, I think as we've seen, you know, some of us might be at the start of that, some of us will be at the peak, and some of us will be coming out at the other end. But I think if we can have that understanding amongst our kind of peers and colleagues to understand where we are in relation, have some conversations about it, acknowledge if today is just not a good day, today's not a good day. And I think, yeah, we just need much more compassion, much clearer communication, less kind of video calls, and much more flexibility. We've got to be, you know, I think if we're not flexible over the next 6 months, I genuinely do think that burnout is going to be the next pandemic that we're faced with. That's a positive note to end that question on, isn't it? There we go.
I can go back to your point on, I know I'm guilty of it, and I'm sure others are as well, just putting, you know, meetings back to back in your calendar and not really thinking like, maybe it's good to have a little bit of a break between those meetings. And like you said about just picking up the phone, I think a lot of the times I forget that, oh, I'll catch up with this person when I'm in the meeting with them. But sometimes it's even just better to catch up with a colleague if you just randomly check in on them, just to show that you're there to talk if you need that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, a lot of our social activities, I know at the beginning of this lot of lockdown, like all of my gym sessions had kind of gone to video calls, my yoga classes had all gone to Zoom calls. But it kind of got to the point of, I cannot do my yoga class at like 6:30 in the morning, knowing that I've then got an entire day of video calls ahead. And I don't want to be doing my gym class at like 6 or 7 in the evening, knowing that I've got a full day tomorrow of Zoom calls. So I think even noticing from my perspective that actually my fitness aspects, you know, the things that I do to, you know, kind of give myself energy, help me calm down, de-stress, all of those sorts of things, like they were the things that I didn't want to keep doing, because I just could not bear another Zoom call, like particularly with my yoga, like with my iPad on the floor and like all the varying different positions that kind of happens with that. Like I was like, nobody wants to see me in that position after a day of Zoom calls, kind of whilst I'm on my bedroom floor. So I think just being mindful of that as well, the things that we would ordinarily be doing socially to help us, a lot of us have stopped because of that kind of video call fatigue. And so I think again, that's something that we need to just bear in mind.
Absolutely. Sophie, I'm going to ask you recently have done a workshop on mental health well-being within digital theater, and you've gotten some good feedback on it. So I was wondering if you could just share how that went, what it was all about, and how it impacted your people.
Yeah, sure. So I think mental health for us has been quite like a hot topic for the past 2 years or so. And actually someone in our publishing team created this kind of initial safe space, open forum event. And it's just grown and grown and grown over the past couple of years. And we've just been doing them much more frequently at the moment, but the last one was pretty much like 80% of the business was there, and it was just really apparent that people just needed a blank kind of open space canvas to just talk. I think sometimes we get really caught up in what kind of well-being initiative can we do today, and those have a place certainly, but it was really successful because we just had a chance to say anything and kind of caveat at the beginning to give everyone a chance to speak and have respect to listen and engage and take away what you will from the day. But it was just an hour blocked into the diary to openly discuss how you're feeling, and it worked really well. I think we had backup questions if things died down and people weren't talking, but it kind of just exploded and was really positive. People came away from it with great feedback, because I think it was that it's community and connectivity for me with mental health at the moment, and it just was a space where people realized that everyone else was in the same boat as them.
I agree with that. With community and connectivity with mental health is so important, and that's something that has helped me, especially throughout this. And is in digital theater, do you have a kind of culture that's really more open and you're more willing to share things around how you're feeling, or is that something that you had to work on?
We've been even in the past 2 years it was such a taboo topic, and we actually had a couple of internal people talk about their own experiences that were quite intense, and we actually had a situation in the business as well where that was quite horrible to deal with for everyone involved. So we've gone through a real journey and transition for it to be a real topic that no one really wanted to discuss, to now where I think that we're not 100% perfect at all, but we are in a space where the CEO or the senior leadership team will openly talk about mental health, and in our weekly huddles, for example, we reinforce it every week. I think sometimes the happiness index is such an amazing tool for this, because people will still say, I still don't feel like I can talk, despite us continually trying to get the message across that it's it's a safe space for people to talk. But it's still challenging for people to talk to their line managers sometimes, and for it to really be accepted that a mental illness is the same as a physical illness, and to be able to openly discuss that with your line manager or HR. We're definitely getting there, but I think there's still absolutely work to do, I think, and it's a wider society piece rather than an internal business thing. But yeah.
Do you mind if I ask a question on that, Sophie? So in terms of that, where you said some people don't feel necessarily still able to talk.
Yeah.
Because again, I think every time we talk about mental health, and it's Mental Health Awareness Week or Day or any of those sorts of things, I think we're definitely getting through that we need to be talking more. But I'm definitely finding that actually more of the issue is that people are prepared to talk, but they don't feel that people are necessarily ready, able to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly from a manager's perspective, they don't always know what to say, or it's kind of, well, I experienced the same thing, or I know somebody that experienced the same thing. So we can kind of deflect. So do you think, with what you've just said there, do you think it is more about the talking, or do you think it might be, if you flipped it, might it be more about the ability to feel heard?
100%, and that's where it comes from, right? So we will talk to our senior leadership team weekly to make sure they're asking the right questions. So how's your mental health this week compared to last week, for example? And to really be engaging and openly, actively ready to listen to what people say. And I think that it's not the danger of that as well, but I think educating your line managers on responding to mental health is, I think there's a fear there within them to even approach that kind of conversation. So giving them the confidence in saying, you're not a mental health professional, but you can still listen, and we have a duty of care to our employees to be there, to hear what they have to say. And then we can work out each case on a case-by-case basis. But you're absolutely right. I think it starts with the manager and how comfortable they are in listening in the first place.
Okay.
Okay.
That's such a good point, Kelly, and just making sure that if you are going to open up those conversations, to know how to actively listen to people when they are talking about it.
Yeah, for sure.
So my next question was for you, Kelly. As we look forward to the next 6 months, at least, of working from home, what are things that we could be more aware of to take care of our mental health? I know we kind of touched on this a little bit before, but
I think it's probably starting with a check-in with us, and again, I think social media is full of everything at the moment, isn't it? We've got to be positive. Like, if we're not positive, there's something wrong with us. I don't believe there's any such thing as good or bad emotions. I think we just have emotions. And I think, trying to get used to some of that language, I think, is a really good start. If you look at the things like the emotional curve, if you look at the emotional cycle, there's a brilliant table at the book. I forget the author, but there's a book called Permission to Feel. And that's got an amazing table in it that will kind of grids some of the emotions that we have. But I think just being able to kind of really pinpoint where we are today is a really good start. Like, good and fine and okay are not emotions. They're not feelings. They're not kind of mental health triggers, but actually they seem to be the common responses when you're asking people. And so I think if we can get better at articulating how we're feeling, trying to do things that will then better manage our energy. So, and again, I'm no issue sharing whatsoever. So I experienced massive burnout in 2013, hence as a result of a lot of the stuff that I do now. That triggered a massive impact for me in terms of kind of mental health ups and downs. And last year I was actually diagnosed with bipolar. That doesn't mean that I don't cope. That doesn't mean that I can't manage anything, but I have to be really, really aware of my energy levels and try to do more of the things that give me energy versus a lot of the things that drain me of energy. And again, like we've just said, sitting in front of a computer screen all day, trying to kind of maneuver and kind of look around people's faces, like, this is not good for our energy level. If we're having a great energized conversation, obviously it is. But a lot of the time it's not great for our energy levels, and I talk quite a lot about kind of energy angels and energy vampires. And really, we need a ratio of kind of 3 angels to every 1 vampire. So if one Zoom call for an hour is a vampire, you then need 3 hours of something else afterwards that's really going to kind of lift you and energize you. And I think actually the ratios in most organizations, particularly within lockdown at the moment, are completely the other way around. If we've got any any kind of angels at all. So again, I think just the things that we were talking about, so I think building that self-awareness, understanding where we are and how we feel, doing more of the things that will energize us, and that can include things like drinking, what we're drinking, what we're eating throughout the day, so actually even kind of what we're nourishing our bodies with, getting up, going for a walk, stretching, favorite tune on for kind of 10 minutes, dancing around your desk, whatever it is that you kind of need to do. But I think we just got to be building more of that into our day. And then, as we said earlier, I think, kind of paying attention to, mood dips, making sure that we're getting some fresh air, even if it's in the rain, like wellies and winter coats, go splash in some puddles for kind of 10 minutes, but get outside, get the air that you can absolutely do. And just stay as energized as you possibly can. Because I think if we can manage those energy levels more effectively, ultimately that's giving us, giving our brains the chemicals that we need, more of that kind of happy hormone stuff. And the more of that we've got, the better we will be able to cope. I think it's when we start to deplete in that we can then kind of sink into the kind of depression, anxiety, stress, all of those sorts of things, really.
I just had a question come in from Sean. How did you get the right people for MHFA?
Oh, sorry, that was replying to something in the chat.
Okay. Never mind then. We'll move on from that. I was a bit confused by that one. Thank you, Kelly. So Sophie, I have a next question for you. So with the next 6 months, looking forward to working with your team at Digital Theatre. You had to consider new ways of working and new ways of maybe communicating with each other and to look out for your mental health and well-being.
Yeah. So we've said at the beginning of lockdown, or kind of midway through, that we would keep the office as a no obligation zone to go in there, but keep it open and functioning for people. So I think there is a lot of worry around what's going to happen over the next 6 months. And as I've said, the kind of need for what can we do now over the next 6 months to keep everyone engaged has really gone up. But so for us, again, it's around that community connectivity, but educating people as much as we can as well. So we are doing a kind of wellbeing series where we are kind of taking part in what our EAP, Employee Assistance Program, is really kind of helping us along the way of different topics like small steps to self-care and how you can look at your mental health in lockdown, what food you can eat, and giving the kind of holistic well-being package. I think, well, I've got lists of loads of stuff that we're doing, but encouraging, as you've just said, to just get up and get out, doing walking meetings rather than sitting at your desk and getting on the phone, and just getting outside. We did it yesterday with the whole senior leadership team, and it just really lifted everyone's spirits. But encouraging again line managers to and giving them the tools to speak to their team, I think is probably the biggest coping strategy that we've got over the next 6 months. But in terms of actually the way of working, we've moved into remote working quite easily, and it's now recognizing that people want that connectivity back. So giving them the spontaneous ways of communication rather than as you said, booking in an hour Zoom call, having different ways to communicate, whether that's, I don't know, sending them a voice note or having different Slack channels or GChat channels that they can be contacted on. And it's a real education piece for line managers to be reaching out more frequently and listening to their teams about how they want to be connected with. It's going to be completely different for our sales team to our developer team, and how they want to celebrate and have connectivity in their team. So we've been giving out budgets that go specifically to teams, and they can spend it individually rather than a blanket wide approach. What else? But overall, kind of, we are engaged in remote working for the long term now, and we are looking at only ever having 25% capacity back in the offices at any one time. Yeah, forevermore. So I think we are adapting to it as we go along.
Yeah, you as well as many others are adapting as we go along. I really like that approach that you have with looking at individual teams and kind of doing different initiatives with it, because every team will work differently. Like for example, in the Happiness Index, our tech team will work differently than our marketing and growth team. But I really like that approach. I was wondering if anybody else had anything that they're working on at the moment, or any kind of ideas that they've done in their organization around mental health and well-being, especially looking forward to the next 6 months. If anybody wanted to share.
Hiya, it's
Rosie.
Narissa here. Oh. Sorry, loads of us.
Go ahead, Narissa.
I just wanted to say quickly, importantly, what people was mentioning about the fact that there's no breaks and there's back-to-back calls. It's not something that we've introduced yet, but we are proposing it as an idea of saying a well-being hour or your hour, something during the day. We're not going to specify when it has to be, so we're not going to say, you know, sort of organisation-wide that you can't have meetings booked in between 12 and 1, because for some teams that might not be feasible, but just putting it in there so it's part of the culture and the expectation that you will take an hour during the day, whether it's your lunch hour or whether you wanted to split it up as 3 20-minute breaks. But for 60 minutes each day, you will down tools. However you do that throughout the day is up to you, whether you take it, as I said, in 3 20-minute slots or as an hour, just to sort of encourage that and show that there is that expectation from the organisation that you will take some time out of the working day to look after your well-being.
I love that. Can I just ask, Narissa, how will you ensure that there's kind of boundaries? So you mentioned kind of culture there, but how will you ensure that actually happens? So say, for example, if somebody wants to book, you know, the next hour with me and I say that's my well-being hour, do I have permission to decline that meeting? What will the kind of, what might some of the boundaries look like around that?
Absolutely. Well, the message comes from the top down. The chief executive addresses all staff every week virtually through Microsoft Teams, and every week without fail he mentions how it's important to put, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the phrase, put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
So he's always saying that, so that's every week. So we know that it's got the support of the executive leadership team, senior leadership team, and the chief exec. But yes, because one of our pillars, one of our ways of working is everyone is a leader. That's not something we need to tell people to do or give them permission to do. They can decline that meeting. They don't have to explain why.
Brilliant.
But a good way to sort of ensure it's that you do take it is to put it in your diary. So we'll encourage people to put that in, but they don't have to, and they can decline the meetings if that's when they plan to take their lunch hour or their hour.
Thanks for sharing that. Jenny, you had to say as well.
Yeah, so I was Narissa almost violently agree with you on that one. We've had our new strategy and people strategy launched in the recent months. But one of the things we've had through this pandemic is a wellbeing hub, and one of the things has been 5 different ways to take time. Absolutely, Narissa, that's definitely, I can echo what you said as well. But also, it's been encouraging people to use their holiday. Lots of people have postponed holidays so much, and it's actually saying to people, use that holiday. You need that break. You deserve that break, because I think burnout's going to come because people are pedaling so fast and they're worried about taking a break from work. But it's saying absolutely do that. Narissa, like you, it's come top down from exactly the same oxygen mask analogy. I think we're all going yes. But we've had something really wonderful happen at Arup that I just wanted to share, because we have lighting and acoustic teams. And people who are just really interested in wellbeing. We've had a team in Australia who've developed something called Take 10, and it's been group meditation. And this has been launched globally now online, but they were actually in the Sydney office. They dedicated a room and they had the lighting team design the lighting, the acoustic team design some I'd say music, it's more a background, and they would take 10 minutes and they breathe and they do it together. So we're developing a culture where it is very much okay that you have blocked out time in your diary and you do not have to justify that to anybody. And actually, if you want to join a group meditation, they're online now. So it happens and it gets publicized every kind of couple of weeks. Somebody's like, hey, don't forget to take 10. So it was called 10 at 10 in Australia because they did it at 10 a.m. in the morning in the Sydney office. But it's just little things like that, which seem like a little thing, but trust me, in a global company of 16,000 people, it's really being adopted everywhere and across different cultures as well. So it's just really wonderful to, whatever works within your organization, encourage people to take that time out.
I love that. Thank you, Jenny, for sharing. Okay, I'm just going to go on to my last question. I'm a bit conscious of time here. Kelly, I know that you've done a few posts on LinkedIn that I've noticed around setting boundaries for yourself. And I think that's something I personally think is really important. If you can't look after yourself first, it's going to be really difficult for you to support others. And that's something that we've a theme that we've talked about throughout this. So I was wondering if you could just share what are some best practice tips to set boundaries for ourselves so that we can.
Well, I suppose to kind of echo what Narissa and Jenny were saying, really, I think the first thing is being able to say no. Again, I think as HR professionals, we're brilliant at saying yes to whatever comes our way. Like, we don't want to be seen to be letting people down or failing or disappointing or any of those sorts of things. So I think firstly, well, even before, I think saying no is absolutely fundamentally important. But I think first of all, it's understanding what your boundaries are. So I have like a non-negotiable morning practice. I will have non-negotiable time throughout the day, again, to kind of recharge, do what it is that I need to do. I have non-negotiable practice that I do of an evening. At the Chrysalis Crew, we started the full-day working week back in January 2019. I do not put anything in my diary on Mondays. Mondays is totally my day. The only thing that's in my diary on a Monday is my day Monday. And it's totally and utterly blocked out. So I think it's understanding what your boundaries are first and foremost, recognizing that, again, no is a complete response. It doesn't have to be no because I think, again, if you start to do that, I can't do that for you today. Okay, well, how about tomorrow? Oh, no, I can't do it tomorrow. Okay, so how about Wednesday, or how about Thursday, or how about Friday? Like, people will always try and work around excuses, whereas actually we can just say no. Okay, it is a complete response. If anybody wants a different analogy, I love the oxygen mask one, but there is also, you cannot drink from an empty cup. Like, if our cup does not have any energy in it, like, we kind of need to work from there. So I think it's being clear on your boundaries, understanding what your non-negotiables are, and keeping within those non-negotiables. Non-negotiables will be different for everybody. And again, depending on what it is that we need, depending on the day, from my perspective, depending on what clients need and all of those sorts of things. Auto responses work brilliantly on things like email. There are some brilliant responses out there. I work flexibly. Don't feel that you have to respond if I'm emailing you at 4 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock at night. So I think it's just understanding your own priorities, understanding your own practices, but being really clear about your non-negotiables, and I think explaining those non-negotiables to people. So if people want a reason from me as to why I am saying no to something, I will talk about the fact that I am respecting my boundaries, I am respecting my energy, this is my non-negotiable time, and I am putting myself first. Again, I think we still very much think that self-care is selfish. I see lots of stuff out there, and it absolutely isn't. Like, if I, particularly with all of the client work that I'm doing, like if you've selected to work with me as your HR coach, and I'm absolutely shattered at the beginning of a session, I can't give you what you need out of that session. So I don't do back-to-back sessions. There are certain days that I do no client work whatsoever. They are my non-negotiables. And even if my team ring or email or whatever, this particular thing needs to happen on this particular day, it's not happening. It's really not happening, because, again, I need to make sure that I have the energy to be able to help people. And I do talk about boundaries a lot, and I think there was a quote, myself and a friend of mine who works in the US, Laura Mazzullo from Eastside Staffing, we do kind of bi-weekly conversations on YouTube, but I think there was a quote in that givers must set boundaries because takers never do. And I think, again, for a lot of the HR profession, we are the givers and other people will do the taking. If we do not set our boundaries, those that continue to take from us will never set boundaries for us. It has to start with us. So be really clear on what your non-negotiables are. Be really clear on what you will say yes to and what you will say no to. And then just keep it going. Like, it can be really difficult at times. There are still some times where I want to be like, oh, yes, I can. I could squeeze that in, or I could squeeze that in, or yes, I'll have that done for you by then. But I have to, a kind of question for me really that I ask is kind of, what's the integrity gap? Because if something doesn't quite feel right for me, I need to know if there is an integrity gap there. If I'm going to squeeze something in for the risk of then letting my own energy levels or my own mood decline, where is that integrity gap? Like, I can't be talking to people about mental well-being, self-care, putting yourself first, and then not doing it myself. So my check-in question is either, is there, or where is the integrity gap? And that will give me my answer.
Love that, Kelly. And I really like the word non-negotiable, because that just sets it straight that there's
there's no conversation. Like, that's
actually. I'm just acknowledging that I had to go grab the tennis ball for the dogs, so sorry about that. Within this entire time, so.
At the beginning of the call, this will happen. I may need to grab the tennis ball for the dog, right? Yeah. That's non-negotiable. I may have to throw a tennis ball for the dog. Like, it's a simple. Again, if we communicate that and make that clear, it doesn't have to become an issue. It doesn't have to become a burden. This is communicating. This is what is likely to happen, and then everybody else respects you for it. That's kind of how you start to role model it, I think.
Yeah, that's such great advice. Thank you, Kelly. Well, again, conscious of time, we're coming to an end of our show for episode 3. I just want to ask one last question to you both, Sophie and Kelly. What makes you happy? What makes you happy?
I'll go first. What makes me happy is dancing around my room and singing really loud. That makes me really happy.
I think for me, it's family and people, and I think, if I can spend as much time with my sons as I possibly can, that just lights me up there. I've got 19-year-old twins, so they're at the point, like, spending time with mum now is not cool. But the fact that, I still get, every time I have a conversation with them or see them, I still get I love you, I still get hugs from them. I still find out everything there is about their day. So I kind of think, I've not done too bad a job there. So that makes me happy. And then I think just ultimately, and hearing some of the amazing stuff that you guys have spoken about today, like, I'm massively passionate, genuinely passionate about this kind of people first and changing the world of work. So when I hear incredible stories like have kind of been shared today, like, that puts a big smile on my face. That's where we need to be moving to.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much. I think that was such a great discussion. It was really good to hear from you both, and for everybody else who shared. We do have our next episode coming up on the 22nd. That will feature our very own Matt Phelan from the Happiness Index, our head of global happiness, and he'll be talking about his book that's coming out and all the research that's gone into that about happiness. So hopefully we can see you all next time, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rosie.
Thanks, Rosie.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.